amazes me when people talk about gun control. On either side, most of the time, they don't have any of the facts. They have no clue what they're talking about. They're talking about emotional stuff. They're talking about we have the right to defend ourselves. Defend ourselves against criminals? Defend ourselves against terrorists? Sure, we have that right. You have your right to defend yourself under any circumstances when your life, limb is in danger. But our right to carry firearms, to keep and bear them, has to do with the Second Amendment. And the thing that it stresses in the Second Amendment is that we have the right to have firearms, to keep and bear them, to protect us from a tyrannical government. It says it there. It says the state has a right to keep a well-regulated militia. Well, when this was written, a well-regulated militia were the people in the city, were the people in the countryside, was your average Joe citizen, was the militia. Who do you think won the Revolutionary War? The Revolutionary War was won because farmers, laborers, people of industry had better firearms than the government had. And if it wasn't for the Kentucky long rifle, the Civil War would have been lost. These were men and women that had guns. Not army. They were conscripted, they joined, but they brought their own firearms because the civilians had better firearms than the military. And that was true all the way up into and including World War I. The military always skimped. They gave our soldiers crap because that's all they could afford. There wasn't major tax revenue back then. We have the right to keep and bear arms to protect ourselves from a government. The government should never have more powerful weapons than the people within it. Unfortunately, in this world, that's not going to happen because the average person can't afford an F-16 or an F-18, let alone be able to learn how to fly one without millions of dollars in training. You're not going to have a Gatling gun. But having a rifle called an AR-15 or an AR-14, I'm bleeding. See, I get so worked up. I'm even shedding blood over this. The people have always had better arms than the government. But now the government doesn't want us to have any arms. The government doesn't want us to have anything that could even come close to competing if the government decided to take over. And right now, we are living in the most dangerous time you could in the U.S. Even in World War II, the Japanese didn't physically attack America. They didn't come on our soil with soldiers because they knew behind every blade of grass there was going to be an American with a rifle. No, that's not original. That was said by someone back then. There's dispute to say who. Neither here nor there. It was a true statement. Here are some facts. Like I said, I like dealing in facts. The fact is, hundreds of more crimes are stopped with legal handguns than are committed by them. Here's a fact. That they want to make AR-15s or assault rifles illegal. Of all of the now let's take all rifles, period. Every rifle that's made. Of all the rifles that are made and sold in the U.S., 2% of them are black guns. That's what they call them, black guns. Right. So let's look at all rifles just to make it easier because the numbers are easier to deal with. Every year, approximately, give or take a few, about 240 people are killed a year by rifles. Of the rifles that are sold, it's only 2% are ARs. And of all those people, that includes accidents during hunting, accidents while cleaning, accidents, I didn't know it was loaded, morons. All those things, all those accidents are included in that 240. Do you know 460 people a year are killed by hammers? Bludgeoned to death by hammers? I think being bludgeoned to death by a hammer is a hell of a lot more violent and painful than being shot by a rifle. Let's put both those numbers in perspective. 240. Let's add them together. All the people that were killed by rifles and hammers. You're going to say, why is he doing that? That's kind of silly. No, I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say a hammer is as deadly as a rifle, and I'm going to add it together. So that's 700 and change. 710, I think. My brain is working, right? People are killed by long guns and hammers combined. Now let's look at some realities. Car crashes, 33,800 people. Accidental deaths. This is anything accidental that does not include a firearm or a car accident. 30,200. Poisonings, 38,851. That's a year. So what is that? 33,000, 30,000, 63,000, 93,000. So that comes out to 108,000 people die in accidents, car crashes, and poisonings, those three combined. And people are freaked out that 240 people are killed by rifles a year? Where is the logic in that? Why aren't they pushing for better control over situations and education so people don't poison themselves or poison each other? Make it harder to get poisons. Why? You know, they think that if they outlaw guns, they'll stop violence. You know what? Show me how they stopped all the cocaine coming into the country. That's already illegal in every shape and form. Show me how they stopped all the heroin coming into this country. Show me how they stopped all the marijuana that's grown outside of this country that's coming in. Show me how they stopped any of that. Because if you disarm Americans, then it will be the next big import, is firearms. They'll bring them in and they'll use them illegally and they won't be traceable. Do I sound pissed off? I get pissed off when people don't use logic, when people just have a feeling it should be this way. All of the places that have been bombed or had mass killings were in places that had high gun control. They go, oh, they blame it on the states that sell guns. Well, those states should have high crime also. So Newark blames it on Philadelphia. Makes no frigging sense. People buy guns privately? Yeah. Are some of them straw purchases? Yeah. Are some legally bought guns from firearms dealers straw purchases? Yeah. But you can't punish millions of people because a couple of hundred a year used a gun illegally. Someone said to me, well, Canada has no guns and they have a lower crime rate than we do. Huh. No, they don't. Canada has 38 million people. We have 300 million. When you compare it to per capita or percentage, their crime rate is higher than ours. If you look at where most crime happens, which is urban centers, and you want to compare us to Europe, America has 18 urban centers. Europe has 4. You can pick any 4 urban centers in America and compare it to any 4 urban centers in the UK, in France, in all of Europe, and you're going to find that their crime rate is higher. Australia, perfect example, not too long ago, made it impossible practically for Australians to own guns, except for hunting rifles. They confiscated a lot of weapons. Sydney, first year after gun control. Crime up 300%. Facts. They can argue all the crap they want. It's like in New York, the old thing is, hey, if you have a gun, it's more likely going to be taken from you and used on you. Some police chief came up with that nonsense. It's never been documented that's ever happened. At least not in the way he described it. Has someone attacked a person and the person who was armed pull out their gun and have it taken from them? No. Hasn't happened. Because if you pull out a gun and shoot someone, they're going to do one of four things. They're going to run away. They're going to run away and bleed, maybe die later. They're going to fall down and bleed, maybe die later. Or they're going to fall down and die because you hit them in a vital spot. Those are the four things that happen that attack someone who is armed and minimal training to shoot someone within 3 feet. FBI statistics are, when a person who is legally armed and uses a gun legally in self-defense, 98% of the time, within 3 feet, less than 3 shots, within 3 seconds. That's an unbiased report from the government. If someone attacked a room, if someone went into a room with 100 people in it and started shooting them up, are they going to kill people? Yes, they are. Are they going to kill a lot of people? If there's no one armed to stop them, yeah, they are. If there's someone who can stop them, is there a possibility that person might accidentally shoot an innocent and have collateral damage to themselves trying to end the situation? Yeah, it's a possibility. But more of a possibility is that they will stop the person from slaughtering 14 people, 20 people, 150 people. That'll stop because they'll be being shot at. They can't pull the trigger and aim at innocent people when somebody else is shooting at them. And they can't do anything much if they're hit. That's the reality. The reality is this: when good people have guns, when the population of a state is allowed to have guns, and there are 35 states in this United States that have that right to have and carry guns 24/7, crime is lower by 40% in those states. New York, in order to get their crime rate down, had to have a stop and frisk. They had to have such invasive action to get their crime rate down. People had to give up their civil liberties. They had to give up their constitutional rights and their constitutional liberties to be stopped and frisked because the cop didn't like the way they looked, got suspicious of their actions, saw a little bulge. Is that where you want to live? You want to live in a state, in a city that has stop and frisk? I agree, New York needs it. It worked. But the problem is, they needed it and it worked because they created such a hostile environment. Hostile to the average citizen, the innocent. They make all the innocent guilty. And what do they do with the guilty? They make excuses for them. Get over it! These are evil people. They're looking to kill us. They want to hurt us. Having the right to keep and bear arms made this country great. Up until John F. Kennedy was killed, we had a rifle range in practically every school. They had the civilian marksmanship program that was sponsored by the government, where you could buy rifles that have been sold to you inexpensively. I'm talking like M1 Grands, which is a 30-06 rifle, for $15, $20. M1 carbines, $15, $20. I mean, I'm going back a ways, but that's the program they had after World War I and II. Every Boy Scout learned how to shoot. Every Cub Scout learned how to shoot. I was shooting when I was 12. There was no bad stigma attached to guns. The bad stigma was attached to bad people doing bad things. Where it belongs. You want to have good gun control? Practice. You want to have good laws to protect people from bad people with guns? Then anyone using a gun in a crime should be put away for the rest of his life, whether he shot it or not. And if he's not an American citizen, he should be deported. Immediately. Unless, of course, someone was shot, then he's got to go to jail for the rest of his life. And not only deported, but he should be put on a no-fly list and another list that says arrest immediately if trying to come into the country. And at that point, you prosecute him to the full extent of the law and put him away for the rest of his life. I don't think he'll come back. If everybody in this country had the right to have guns, we'd have half the crime we have. Because half the crime is committed in urban centers and in states that do not allow handguns. Because in Florida, you want to commit a crime, you're taking a chance that you're going to end up shot. In Texas, you're taking the chance you're going to end up shot. If I was in New York laying in my bed and I had a wife who was laying next to me and some guy broke in the middle of the night and decided that he was going to beat us to death and started hitting my wife with a hammer and I reached into the bureau drawer and shot him, sure he'd get arrested. Sure he'd go to jail if he survived. But then he can sue me from jail and end up moving into my house after he gets out because he's going to win because New York is insane. There's no rational of that. The only thing good about New York for them is they're real close to the United States and they can move out of there without a visa. Florida, not only do we have the right to defend ourselves, but the one committing the crime has lost the right to civil action against us. So, if you say to me, are you looking to kill somebody if they attack you? Well, if my life is threatened and I believe I'm going to lose my life or I'm going to have grievous bodily harm to the point that it's going to be life-threatening or changing, I have the right to defend myself. So, if you want to be a lamb led to the slaughter by our ridiculous senators who say, oh, if the gunmen realized no one had guns, they'd stop shooting. They were shooting at people who didn't have guns to begin with. Why would they stop Barbara Boxer? You're out of your mind. And that other bimbo in California. You guys are from some other planet. Either you really believe that the American people have not finally caught on to all your crap. If you believe the American people are that stupid, you're out of your, then you're just crazy. But if you really believe what you're saying, you're not only crazy, you're out of your cotton-picking mind nuts. Okay, so I'm ranting, and I started off by saying that you got to use facts, and I threw out a few facts at you. And I threw out a few numbers at you. But it's hard not to get emotional when somebody is trying to destroy your country, destroy the Constitution, try to reword the Constitution so it makes what they're saying reality. I got news for all of you people. The Constitution was purposely written so the average man could read it and understand it. Because back then, very few people had a high school diploma, let alone a sixth grade education. It was for the people, not the lawyers. Lawyers can't say a thing straight. It's impossible for them to put a sentence together that says anything. Everything is, you can interpret it 7 different ways. They read a straight sentence. I went to the store. They will figure out a way to interpret that. That means I never left yet. No bill should be signed into law that the average person cannot read. No bill should be written that's outside of plain English. No law should be written that isn't understandable by someone with a high school education. Because right now, most of the people graduating college don't even have the reading level of a 9th grader. They can tell you all about the terrible things that this country has done in the name of America, but they can't tell you the truth. For instance, The United States of America never started slavery. The United States of America, when it was created and formed its Constitution, all men are created equal, strived from the beginning to end slavery. Getting back to the initial thrust of this, if you love the Constitution, you have to defend it, even when some of the decisions don't go your way. I don't like a lot of liberal decisions, but if it goes through Congress and it's passed, I live with it. The liberals don't want anything, don't give anybody a chance to pass anything other than their stuff. When they had the House, when they had the Senate, no bills went forward unless it was a Democratic bill, unless it was liberal agenda. That's not what this country is about. This country is about discussion. This country is about openness and decision-making together. As long as the Senate and the House of Representatives are paid by the U.S. government and not by the states that they work for, they don't work for those states. They work for the U.S. government. That is their concern. That is their priority, and that's who they represent. All you're doing is voting for people who are telling you a bunch of bullshit, anything you want to hear to get to stay in Washington. And I'm talking about both sides. The way it works is this. The Democrats do all the crappy work. They're the bad guys. They're the push through the liberal agenda, who push through the communist agenda, who push through the anti-American, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian bills. The Democrats is the party that had the slaves to begin with. It's the Republican Party that freed them, by the way. The RWR, the rich white racists of the Democratic Party, want to keep you down. And there's some black people in there I consider rich white racists too. They're the Democrats that want to keep the black people down. Now what about the Republican Party? The Republican Party will tell you all the crap you want to hear to get elected, and once they get elected, they do nothing. Why do they do nothing? They like the bread they're getting. They like the power. They like all the money that's coming their way because of all the stuff the Democrats did. Let me get a George Bush in here, who had one good war and one bad war, and a huge bad decision trying to build nation building in a country whose mentality is so different than the United States and our culture. We have no clue how they think. They are not like us, and we're going to nation build for them. We should have never, I don't care that Hussein was an animal and killed his own people. His own people, all of his people hated us. What's the difference if he killed them? I don't care. Let him kill all those people. He kept the place stable. I'm not saying the enemy of our enemy is our friend. I don't believe in that bullshit. I'm not supporting an enemy. The only time I'll support someone I disagree with is if they're no threat to us. He was no threat to us. We blew up Afghanistan. Good move. Go in and destroy Al-Qaeda. Good move, but we should have pulled out. We didn't. Why? Because George Bush found a way to increase the budgets, increase our spending, drive us into our economy into oblivion. He had his 8 years. So now it's time to turn over the mantle to push us further and further into human slavery to the government. Now we have choices. Donald Trump says a lot of great stuff. The unfortunate part is he was a big liberal supporter his whole life. All the liberal things. Now I don't know, was he a sly businessman who used them and didn't care about his personal ethics, or had no personal ethics? It was all business. Or was he really one of them and now just telling us what we want to hear? Or has he really been soured by all the crap that's gone through, and is he for real? I don't know. But I know Ted Cruz is, because I've seen him. We've all seen him filibuster. We've seen him in office actually doing what he told us he was going to do. He may have not succeeded in everything, but he sure hell gave it a try to the point where we knew he was serious. It wasn't a half-hearted try. He did it until he couldn't stand anymore, or he did it until there was just nothing left to do. So my vote right now is going to whoever is the Republican Party nominee. I shouldn't say that. It's going to the Republican Party nominee as long as it's Ted Cruz, Carly Fiorina, Donald Trump, Ben Carson, or Marco Rubio. And I should say, I think I gave it in the order in which I vote for them. Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina would be on the top of my list. Unfortunately, Carly is not doing very well. People aren't listening to her. She's too scary, way too scary. So no one's reporting anything she's saying. See, Trump's too big not to report on. They're trying to ignore Marco Rubio. They're trying to ignore Ted Cruz. They're ignoring just about everybody else. Whenever Carly does get in front of a camera and talks, people like her. She makes sense. She's real. I think she's cute. But I'm an old man, so, what can I tell you? Okay. I talked about gun control. I talked about politics. And I talked about American stupidity. So what are you? Are you a person that thinks they're cool because they emulate all the other cool people around them? Are you a clone of your neighbor? Are you a clone of who you think is cool? Well, if that's what you are, then you're not cool. And if you're exactly what the person is who you're trying to emulate is, they're not cool either. What happened to individualism? What happened to make a statement, your own statement? That's why I moved out of New York. Everybody was the same. It was like a cookie cutter. Everybody. Same haircut, same clothing, same designers were popular, same fads taking off, same food they eat. That whole food bullshit, I can get off on that in a second, but I won't. 90% of the people I know wouldn't know a good steak if they ate one. They wouldn't know good vegetables if they ate it. They wouldn't know good cooking if they ate it. It all tastes the same to them. I'm done. End of rant. And it was a rant. That's why it was all over the place. This is my rant. This is the first rant I put on here. It won't be my last. I think this was too long anyway. Okay. Goodbye. For now. Really. Go. Leave. Get out. Go away. I'm done. Turn the camera off, buddy. Ugh. Just kidding. I don't have a gun on me. I'm at home. Okay, now go. For real.